Run your tongue across your teeth for a second. Now imagine keeping them clean for a whole lifetime with nothing. No toothbrush, no toothpaste, no floss, no mouthwash, no dentist to run to when something goes wrong. Just a mouthful of teeth that have to last you 50, 60, 70 years in a brutal world. No replacements are coming. No fillings, no crowns, no second chances. What you have is what you get. So how on earth did ancient humans keep their teeth and survive with a mouth at all? You probably picture a Stone Age cave dweller with a rotten, broken, blackened smile, a grim mouth of stumps, breath like a swamp, teeth dropping out one painful month at a time. It is exactly what you would expect from people with no brushes and no dentists anywhere on earth. But here is the twist that has stunned scientists who actually study those ancient skulls. When researchers dig up the jaws of early hunter-gatherers and look closely at the teeth, they very often find something astonishing. Clean, strong, healthy teeth with almost no cavities. In many cases, mouths in far better shape than the average person walking around today. People who never once brushed their teeth somehow had better teeth than you. So this is a real mystery, and it cuts against everything we have been told. How did people with none of our dental tools end up with such healthy mouths? And if their teeth were so good, then what on earth went so wrong that ours need constant care? The answer is a story of diet, of clever invention, and of one disaster that changed our mouths forever. So come with me into the ancient mouth and meet the surprising truth about the oldest smiles in the world. We will find the first toothbrushes, the first toothpaste, and the first dentist drilling in the dark. And we will find the exact moment in history when human teeth, after millions of good years, suddenly fell apart. This is how ancient humans brushed their teeth. Let us start with that astonishing fact, because it is the key to the whole story. Picture an archaeologist holding the jawbone of someone who died tens of thousands of years ago, a hunter-gatherer who lived wild on the land, who never saw a brush or a tube of paste. By every modern assumption, that mouth should be a wreck, ruined by a lifetime with no care. And yet, again and again, what they find instead is a row of solid, healthy teeth. The single thing they almost never find in these ancient mouths is the one we fear the most: the cavity. Tooth decay, the rot that drills holes in our teeth and sends us running to the dentist, is strangely rare. In skull after skull from these old foraging peoples, the rate of cavities is remarkably low. Something about their lives was protecting their teeth far better than all our brushing protects ours. Now, this does not mean their mouths were perfect, and we have to be honest about that. We will see later that ancient teeth had real troubles of their own, just different ones from ours. But the specific plague of modern mouths, the cavity, the slow sweet rot, was almost absent. And that single absence is the loose thread that, when you pull it, unravels the whole mystery. Because it tells us the health of those ancient teeth had almost nothing to do with cleaning. They were not winning at brushing, they were not flossing in the firelight, they simply did not need to. Their teeth stayed healthy for a completely different reason, one that came from inside the mouth, not outside. And that reason was not on their teeth at all. It was on the end of their spear and in their hands. So before we ever talk about ancient brushes and pastes, we have to talk about the real secret. The thing that kept those old smiles strong was not a tool or a trick or a cleaning routine. It was what passed over those teeth 3 times a day, every single day of their lives. It was their food. To understand the ancient mouth, you first have to understand the ancient meal. Here is the real hero of the healthy ancient mouth, and it is sitting on the dinner plate: the diet. To understand why, you first have to understand what actually causes a cavity in the first place. Your mouth is home to tiny living creatures, bacteria, that feed on what you eat. And their absolute favorite food is sugar, along with the soft starches that quickly turn into it. When they feast on sugar, they produce acid, and that acid is what eats holes in your teeth. So the question of cavities is really the question of sugar. And now look at the ancient diet. There were no sweets, no candy, No soda, no cakes, no biscuits, none of the things that flood our mouths today. There was no refined sugar at all, and no soft white flour, because farming had not yet been invented. The single biggest fuel for tooth decay simply did not exist in their world. What did they eat instead? Tough, wild, natural food, the kind that gives bacteria nothing to feast on. Meat and fish, hard roots and tubers dug from the ground, nuts, seeds, and fibrous wild plants. Foods that were chewy, gritty, and low in sugar, the exact opposite of a modern snack. This was a diet that starved the very bacteria that caused decay, meal after meal. And that rough food did something else remarkable. It actually helped to clean the teeth as they ate. Chewing tough, fibrous plants and hard root scrubs and scours the surface of the teeth. The very act of eating wiped away much of the soft film where bacteria like to gather and grow. Their dinner was their toothbrush, scrubbing their teeth clean 3 times a day without any effort. There may even have been natural medicines hiding in their wild food, fighting decay from within. Many wild plants are rich in compounds that slow the growth of bacteria in the mouth. A diet packed with such plants is a diet quietly waging war on tooth decay all day long. Compared to a modern mouth bathed in sugar, the ancient mouth was a far harder place to rot. So, the great secret of the healthy ancient smile turns out to be almost embarrassingly simple. It was not a lost technique or a magic plant. It was the total absence of sugar and soft food. Their teeth were healthy not because they cleaned them better, but because they fed them better. Which raises a wonderful question. If their food did the work, why did they bother to clean at all? Because here is the thing. They did clean their teeth, and they have been doing it for a very long time. Even with their healthy diets, people clearly dislike the feeling of a dirty mouth. The same discomfort you feel with food stuck in your teeth was felt by humans thousands of years ago. And so, long before anything we would call a toothbrush, they invented a beautifully simple one. They reached out, broke a twig off a tree, and turned it into a tool for cleaning their teeth. This was the chew stick, and it is one of the oldest hygiene tools in all of human history. You take a small, fresh twig from the right kind of tree, and you chew on one end until it frays. The fibers split apart and spread out into a soft, bristly brush right there at the tip. And with that frayed end, you scrub your teeth and your gums exactly as you would with a brush today. What makes this so clever is that the right twigs were not just bristles. They were medicine too. People learned which trees worked best, and many of them were no accident at all. Certain woods contain natural substances that fight bacteria and freshen the breath. So the chew stick scrubbed the teeth clean and dosed the mouth with germ-fighting compounds at once. And this was not some rare local trick. The chew stick spread across much of the ancient world. People on different continents, who never met, all hit upon the same simple, brilliant idea. From ancient civilizations to peoples living traditionally even today, the frayed twig appears again and again. It is one of the most successful pieces of technology our species ever invented. In fact, the humble chew stick may be the longest serving tool in the entire history of hygiene. Versions of it were used for many thousands of years, far longer than our modern brush has existed. And here is the remarkable part. It genuinely works. By any measure, a good chew stick cleans teeth well. This was not a primitive fumble toward dental care. It was a finished, effective answer. So the first toothbrush was not a recent invention at all. It was a twig, and it was ancient. A piece of the living tree, frayed by the teeth it was about to clean, carrying its own medicine inside. Simple enough for anyone to make, anywhere, in moments, from the world right around them. But our resourceful ancestors did not stop at the brush. They went looking for toothpaste too. Because a brush is only half the story. Humans also wanted something to scrub the teeth clean with, the paste. And the search for the perfect tooth powder is one of the oldest recipes humanity ever wrote down. Across the ancient world, people experimented for centuries to find the best mix for a clean mouth. They were looking for something gritty enough to scrub, but gentle enough not to wear the teeth away. And the ingredients they reached for were strange, clever, and sometimes a little alarming. The ancient Egyptians left us some of the earliest recipes, and they read like a wizard's spell. They ground up the ashes of burned animal hooves, mixed with crushed eggshell and the herb myrrh. To this, they added a powder of pumice, the rough volcanic stone, to give the mixture its scrubbing bite. The result was a gritty paste that polished the teeth and left the mouth feeling fresh and clean. And around the world, different peoples cooked up their own versions of the same basic idea. Crushed shells and ground up bones provided the grit to scour away the film on the teeth. Powdered charcoal and ash, surprisingly, helped to clean and whiten and absorb bad smells. Fragrant herbs and crushed seeds were added to fight germs and to leave a pleasant taste behind. When you look at these old recipes closely, something becomes clear. They understood the basic problem. You need an abrasive to physically scrub the teeth, and they had crushed shell, bone, and stone. You want something to fight the germs and the smell, and they had herbs, charcoal, and resins. Without any knowledge of bacteria, by pure trial and error, they had stumbled onto real dental science. Some of their choices were better than others, of course, and not every recipe was wise. A few were so harsh and gritty that, used too often, they would have scrubbed the teeth raw. But the best of them were genuinely effective, the distant ancestors of the tube in your bathroom. The basic recipe, an abrasive plus a germ fighter plus a nice flavor, has barely changed in thousands of years. So the first toothpaste, like the first toothbrush, is far older and far cleverer than we assume. Burned hooves and crushed shells and fragrant herbs ground together into a gritty scrubbing powder. A real attempt, made long ago, to do exactly what we still do at the bathroom sink each morning. But for all this cleverness, the ancient mouth was not the paradise it might sound. It had a dark side. Now, we have to be fair and honest because the ancient mouth had a serious problem of its own. Where? We have praised those tough, gritty diets for keeping cavities away, and that praise is deserved. But that very same rough food came with a heavy price, paid slowly over a lifetime of chewing. Wild food was hard, fibrous, and, crucially, often full of tiny bits of grit, sand, and stone. And grinding your teeth against grit, meal after meal for decades, slowly wears them right down. Where did all that grit come from? Often from the very tools used to prepare the food. When people ground seeds and roots into a paste, they did it between two stones, and with every grind, tiny fragments of that stone mixed into the food, invisible but harsh. So every mouthful came lightly dusted with stone, and every chew sanded the teeth a little flatter. The result is unmistakable in ancient skulls, and it tells a clear story to anyone who reads it. The teeth of older individuals are often worn flat, ground down like stones in a river. The crowns are smoothed away, sometimes so far that the soft inside of the tooth is exposed. These were not cavity-ridden mouths, but they were tired mouths, worn out by a lifetime of hard chewing. And once a tooth was worn through to a sensitive core, real trouble could begin. The exposed inside of a tooth is an open door for infection to creep down toward the root. This could lead to an abscess, a pocket of infection in the jaw, swollen and agonizing. In a world without antibiotics, such an infection was not just painful, it could turn deadly. So we should not romanticize the ancient mouth as some lost golden age of perfect teeth. They escaped the cavity, yes, but they walked straight into a different kind of dental misery. Worn teeth, exposed nerves, painful abscesses, and gum disease were all real parts of ancient life. A healthy young smile could become, by old age, a worn and aching mouth full of trouble. And this is exactly why all those brushes and paste and clever tricks mattered so much to them. They were not fussing over nothing. They were fighting a real and constant battle against pain. A battle against wear, against infection, against the slow breakdown of a mouth that could never be replaced. And when cleaning was not enough, our ancestors took the most astonishing step of all. They became dentists. This may be the most jaw-dropping part of the whole story. Ancient humans performed dentistry. Faced with a painful, rotten, or infected tooth, they did not always simply suffer and wait. And sometimes in places, someone stepped forward and tried to fix the problem directly. And the evidence for this is written unmistakably into the actual teeth they left behind. When we examine certain ancient skulls, we find the clear and deliberate marks of dental work. In one ancient burial ground, scientists found teeth that had been carefully drilled. Neat, round holes bored straight into the chewing surface of the teeth thousands of years ago. They were made with a tiny stone drill spun by hand, almost certainly to clear out painful decay. This is dentistry, real dentistry, performed many thousands of years before any of our machines existed. Sit with that image for a moment because it is staggering and a little terrifying. Someone, long ago, sat another person down and drilled into a living tooth with a spinning piece of stone. No painkillers, no way to numb the pain, just steady hands, a sharp tool, and a desperate need. The patient endured it because the alternative, the throbbing rot, was somehow even worse. And it did not stop at drilling. In at least one case, we have found something even more advanced, a filling. Scientists discovered an ancient tooth with a crack that had been carefully sealed up. The hole was packed with beeswax, plugged to protect the sensitive inside and ease the pain. A filling in the deep past, the same basic idea your dentist uses today, made of wax instead of resin. Even our distant relatives and ancestors show signs of fussing over their aching teeth. On many ancient teeth, we find tiny worn grooves, exactly the shape left by a toothpick used for years. People poked and prodded and cleaned between their teeth, working at the gaps to ease the discomfort. The simple, fidgety habit of picking at your teeth is one of the oldest human behaviors we can find. So the ancient response to dental pain was not just to endure it like helpless animals. It was to invent, to drill, to fill, to pick, to clean, to fight back against the rot and the ache. It was the very beginning of medicine, born from the simple, universal misery of a toothache. But all of this care was about to face its greatest test, from an invention that changed everything. Now we arrive at the turning point, the moment our mouths changed forever, and it was our own doing. For millions of years, our ancestors lived as hunters and gatherers, with those healthy, low-cavity mouths. Then, only a few thousand years ago, humans made the single biggest change in our entire history: farming. We stopped wandering and gathering wild food, and we began to grow crops and settle down. And while farming gave us civilization, it did something quietly disastrous to our teeth. Because farming meant a diet built on a brand new foundation: grain. Soft, starchy, sticky grain. We began eating bread, porridge, and gruel, made from crops like wheat and barley, in huge amounts. And those soft starches break down, right there in the mouth, into exactly the sugars that bacteria love. After millions of years of safety, we suddenly serve the rot bacteria a feast at every meal. The change shows up in the skulls with brutal, undeniable clarity. It is one of the clearest stories in all of archaeology. Look at the teeth of the last hunter-gatherers, and cavities are rare. The mouths are clean. Then look at the farmers who came right after them in the very same region, and the picture flips. Suddenly, the cavities multiply. Decay spreads. The healthy ancient smile begins to rot. This is the great irony sitting at the root of every modern toothache, and it is worth pausing on. Our dental problems are not a sign that ancient people were primitive and dirty and we are advanced. They are very nearly the opposite. Our teeth got worse precisely as our civilization got more advanced. The cavity is not a relic of the Stone Age. It is a disease of progress, of farming, and of sugar. And from that first farming village, the road leads in a straight line right to your bathroom sink. More farming led to more grain led to refined flour, and eventually to pure sugar. Each step made our food softer and sweeter, and each step made our mouths a better home for decay. We did not get worse at cleaning our teeth. We got far, far better at feeding the things that destroy them. So the toothbrush in your hand is not a sign of how clean we have become, it is a confession. We brush twice a day, with all our paste and floss and dentists, just to fight a losing battle. A battle against a flood of sugar that our hunter-gatherer ancestors never had to face at all. They kept their teeth clean by living wild. We must work hard every day just to undo our own diet. There is a strange humility in that when you really think it through to the end. The cave dweller you pictured at the start, with the rotten, broken smile, had it backwards. It is far more likely that he had cleaner teeth than you do, and he never owned a brush. We did not invent dental care because we are smarter. We invented it because we had to. So, how did ancient humans brush their teeth? For the most part, their wild, sugar-free food did the hardest work, scrubbing their teeth as they ate. But they also frayed twigs into the first toothbrushes and ground shells and herbs into the first paste. They fought wear and infection, picked and cleaned, and even drilled and filled their aching teeth. They kept their mouths healthy not with better tools than ours, but with a far better diet than ours. And the deepest lesson is hidden in the twist at the very end. Our teeth got worse as we advanced. The cavity that haunts us is not ancient. It arrived with farming, with grain, and with sugar. Every brush and tube and dental visit is our daily struggle to undo what our own food has done. The oldest smiles in the world were very often healthier than the ones we worked so hard to protect. Next time, we are staying in this ancient world, but turning to something written on the skin itself. Because if you went far enough back, your ancestors looked nothing like you might imagine. And somewhere along the long road out of Africa and into the cold and the dark, something changed. So why on earth did ancient humans turn pale? Thanks for spending this time in the deep past with me. If this made you look at your own toothbrush a little differently, subscribe and stay a while. There's a whole ancient world out there, badly drawn, and waiting for you. This was Grug,